I'm gonna say some stuff in this video that could get me in trouble if I'm not careful. Hollywood is incredibly gatekept, and unlike most other industries, it's almost impossible to break into it without having usually a few people on the inside who can vouch for you. And I should know because I went from being a complete nobody in Texas, completely outside the industry, to still being a nobody, but at least breaking in a little bit, starring on shows like Stranger Things, FBI, and Law & Order. Which shows you that there is a way in for people who aren't born into it, but it's not easy. And obviously, most of y'all probably have no idea who I am. So it's not like I'm this big established actor. I just know more than the common person. Before we get into that, we first need to learn a little bit more about the history of Hollywood. In the early 1900s, Hollywood wasn't built as this open creative playground where anyone could just walk in and start making movies, because movies cost money, a lot of money. And the people who had the money weren't just going to give it out to filmmakers for the love of it. They needed to make a return on their investment. And thus Hollywood was a business. Show business, as they say. It was controlled by a small group of studio heads who basically ran everything. I mean, we're talking about just 5 of the big companies: Paramount, MGM, Warner Bros, 20th Century Fox, and RKO. That's it. These weren't just production companies. They owned their workers, the actors, the directors, even the theaters. You didn't just act for MGM, you belonged to them, and they would sign you to these long periods of times, sometimes of 7 years, decide what movies you do, how you dress, what your public image was, and even who you would be allowed to date. And they could do this because they were the only people in town that had the money and means of distribution. So in order to maximize profits, they made it almost impossible for others to compete because they owned the rights to theaters. That meant that if you were an independent filmmaker, good luck, you're probably not an independent filmmaker, because you couldn't get your movie shown anywhere because every major screen in America already belonged to the studios. By the 1940s, the Hollywood studio system had become so powerful it was basically a monopoly, to the point eventually the US government stepped in, and in 1948, the Supreme Court ruled that this setup was illegal under the antitrust law. Basically, the court said, you can't produce the movies and own the theaters and control who gets shown in said movies, unfairly killing your competition through vertical integration. So they forced the studios to sell off their theaters, and overnight the Big Five lost their guaranteed screens, and actors would slowly be set free from their long-term contracts. On paper, it looked amazing. In some ways it was, but with freedom comes a price: chaos. So now, without the studios controlling every deal, someone had to come, step in, and organize it all. And that's where agents come in. This is the system that is largely now used today in the modern day. So you see, if you're making a movie or show, you don't have time to watch tens of thousands of auditions in addition to fulfilling all of the pre-production duties. So you hire a casting director to narrow it down to the top picks, so you only have to review the couple of top choices. But then, of course, the casting directors also would get overwhelmed if they had to watch tens of thousands of auditions from unqualified actors. So to ensure that they're only watching auditions of actors who are actually ready, they then go to agents, who essentially have pre-approved these actors. And agents are professionals who represent a roster of actors that they have picked out themselves. And they build their entire reputation by only sending good actors into auditions whenever they get a request from the casting director. And so they're constantly on the search for great actors of high quality, because they only make money when their actor gets hired, usually 10% commission. And of course, the casting directors will only continue to work if the director of a project is happy with the shortlisted actors and is able to successfully cast and choose from them. And then the director is only able to keep working if the project succeeds and makes the studio money. And of course, studios get a good reputation when they are creating good films. All in all, it does ultimately come back down to the studios, but it's not just a meritocracy. It's a referral system built mostly on merit in most situations. Wink, wink. You basically have 3 levels to get through. First, you have to build a relationship with an agent, and then with casting directors, and then with directors who will then help you develop a reputation as a bankable actor with studios. And by the way, there are many times that directors' hands do get tied, where studios will only greenlight their projects if they cast the more bankable actor. This happens all the time. Directors do not have the final say. Every single actor has to go through a studio and network approval process. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let us just start with level 1 agents. So back in the day, the only way you could get discovered was by sending off physical mail with your headshots or by going to showcases. Now that we're in the digital age, this obviously has never been easier because it can all be sent in an email. So you make stuff, you put it somewhere, others can discover it. And if you know how to properly package your materials, the internet can bring wonderful opportunities your way. The internet exists. Use it. I can promise you now that the next generation of filmmakers and actors and storytellers are making stuff on the internet. I mean, you see sketch comedy groups like Almost Friday, It's a Bad Idea, getting massive studio backing to projects as a result of their online success, as we are in this attention-based economy right now. And my agent even discovered me through clips that I posted online. She saw potential in me, and I'm still working with her to this day. And the crazy part is I still live in Texas, even though she's a Los Angeles agent. So yes, you can get a Los Angeles agent basically from anywhere and audition for some of the biggest parts in the world from the comfort of your own home. I already made a video that goes into detail on how to find an agent, but let me know if you want me to update one for 2026. A brief overview though, you will need an easily marketable acting niche with high quality materials that showcase you doing that niche. We're talking attention-grabbing headshots and some type of demo reel that showcases you at your best. And if you have neither of those and you're trying to find an agent, you're not even close to ready. I did short films for years while filming my own projects that I jerry-rigged into a demo reel with good enough acting that showcased my crazy type of character that I tend to play, which would then essentially open the doors that I've now walked through today. So stop just watching these videos waiting for the shortcut to getting an agent and just go do films. Get stuff under your belt. You can find a ton of casting calls in your area through Facebook groups, Backstage, local university film departments that will occasionally post local casting calls. I did like somewhere in the ballpark of 20 student films while also going to a performing arts high school, meaning a ton of theater projects and training under my belt before I finally got signed. And most of y'all in the comments just keep trying to bypass that. You think I'll give you the secret where now you could just get an agent in your first couple of months after deciding you would become an actor. That's not how it works. I could probably make a whole other video on demo reels, but a good rule of thumb is only selecting scenes that show some type of arc and make sure each of your scenes honor your strengths, but in a way that also brings some type of contrast to highlight your range. Agents want to see that you're able to play a wide range of roles they could submit you for. Casting directors want to see, can you play this specific role that I'm currently casting? Self-tape reels are also becoming extremely popular as well nowadays, and I will often encourage it, but only so you stop waiting around for projects to finish. So don't just go off, create a self-tape reel, and then try to get an agent. You're putting the cart before the horse. Submit to local projects. Try to get the student film momentum rolling. You get cast in one student film, all of a sudden you get cast in 5 of other people that saw that film that also want to work with you. Take classes, anything to start building up enough of a resume to show that you're committed and willing to do the work. You haven't just woken up one day and decided, let me start acting. But obviously, at the same time, you don't need to just wait around for years twiddling your thumbs in a tiny film market, which is the instance where creating that self-tape reel could be acceptable, especially since I kind of did. I did so many student films and only half of them I ever received footage for. Probably another half of them were actually decent enough to use as a clip. And even then, If you look at my first demo reel, it was mostly footage I shot myself. But the key is I did not shoot it as a self-tape reel. I shot them as actual short films that I created with the purpose of highlighting my strengths. So I didn't just go in front of a blank wall. I made it seem as though it was an actual project, which makes it seem as though I had put a lot more work into it, not just an afternoon with a blank wall. Step 2, now that you're getting auditions, at least somewhat regularly, how do you start building relationships with casting directors? Well, luckily for you, you still don't even have to leave the comfort of your home. After COVID, Hollywood switched to pretty much only doing auditions through self-tapes that you submit online. And with how expensive it's gotten to film in Los Angeles, a lot of productions have found it easier to budget flying people to a different state or country for the duration of the project than to film locally. Meaning, it doesn't really matter if you're from a different state if they're already in the budget to fly an actor out from Los Angeles. When I was cast in Stranger Things, which was my first ever role, by the way, I had auditioned for that casting director, Carmen Cuba, 5 or 6 times beforehand, purely through audition tapes that I submitted from Texas. Now, if you are someone out of state to Los Angeles trying to get a Los Angeles agent, you will be required to potentially self-report and claim to work as a local hire, which means you would be the one footing the bill for travel and hotel. But with how much you would likely get paid for a co-star or guest star role, it would usually be very rare for you to actually spend more than you would make. So it's usually worth it, but something to keep in mind. Anyway, while those 5 or 6 auditions with Carmen Cuba were far from perfect, they made an impression on her. Because for my part in Stranger Things, Carmen Cuba specifically requested me to read for it. So you can network and build a relationship with casting directors just by consistently showing up in your audition tapes and showcasing your strengths, but specifically showcasing your strengths. The biggest mistake I see actors make is just trying to play the character the exact way they're written. They treat the character breakdown like it's the only thing that matters. If the character is described as shy, they will just be shy, which is why usually casting directors will call back the actors that surprised them and brought something they didn't originally anticipate. Obviously, you want to still honor the script and character, but from the perspective of what makes you stand out. You want to find the balance between obviously the circumstances on the page and the unique perspective that life has equipped you with. For example, instead of just being shy, I could be someone that desperately wants to speak up for themselves, but has seen the consequences of doing so in the past, like I have in my own life. So not just being shy and soft-spoken, but afraid to speak up. And all of this, by the way, is important because what if I told you that a lot of your character breakdowns are actually written by interns or even AI, according to a few casting directors I've spoken with. Not all of them, but some of them do actually use it more than you might even think. So these character breakdowns you're basing your entire performance on might not even be from the decision makers. Those character breakdowns are meant just to serve as a suggestion, but ultimately they still want to see what you can bring to the role. And my agent has told me in the past, if you play it safe, they will just cast the actor with a bigger resume than you that also played it safe. So being bold is a prerequisite of being a working actor. Speaking of building connections with casting directors, we're actually hosting a special season of Madness during the end of 2025, which includes monthly casting simulations with amazing special guests. And our next guest is David Rappaport, a legendary casting director who helped cast iconic shows such as You, The Flash, The Summer I Turned Pretty, Gossip Girl, Arrow, and even more. Everyone will get to speak with him, ask him all of their questions on a call, but some students will even get to perform in front of him. So just click the links below if you would like more details about that. If you're curious what makes you stand out, this is where acting classes are incredibly useful and important. I do host my own in our amazing group, The Acting Lab. It's this online acting school which helps you with everything that you need to know in this career, from the craft to the business side of things. But I actually really love something that another iconic acting teacher, Anthony Mendel, said in his book, Book the Fucking Job, which is ultimately the job of an acting class is to unlock you. not to just tell you how to do scene work. Because as a whole, you should be bringing more than just the page into the audition room. You should be bringing your unique fingerprint, and that only comes through unlocking the authentic side of you that can perfectly mesh with this character's perspective outside of you. Meeting yourself where you're at. Now that you have understood all of that, trust the process and know it will take years to then establish that strong rapport with casting directors as they work to find the roles that you're actually right for. And as well as that, also just by nature of you not having a resume, you're gonna have to fight harder to beat out other actors with resumes that directors and studios will probably see as more bankable than you. So just accept the fact that it will take time to be seen as worth the risk if you're starting from zero. Now that you at least have an agent and a few casting directors on your side, eventually you will get to that place where you are starting to book professional work. And ultimately, the studio will then have to be fine with that role being filled by a lesser known actor. From there, you start to enter stage 3, where you begin making friends and connections with directors and other people that you meet on set, which could further lay foundations for future work later down the line. I'll be very honest with y'all, I am still making my way through this stage. Although, I'm friendly with every director and crew member that I've personally worked with. It's not like I'm being personally requested by the Duffer Brothers for their next project or anything like that. So I'm also in this phase of figuring things out. Although, due to connections, I have been directly given or offered roles in the past, despite being a mostly unknown actor. So it does go a long way, even if I'm not yet in that place where I'm seen as bankable enough to be directly requested. But ultimately, this stage is about doing great work consistently and being a pleasure to do great work with. Because if directors enjoy working with you, audiences enjoy watching you, you're going to be called back in. My general rule of thumb on set is to be grateful for everything and entitled to nothing. Because everything that anybody does to make your life easier on set is a blessing, not an expectation. A production assistant's job is to keep things running smoothly, not to be at your beck and call 100% of the time. So when they do take time to help you out, be grateful. Don't just think to yourself,
well, that's their job. They're supposed to.
Because at the end of the day, keep in mind, actors are the last to arrive and the first to leave. So do anything in your power to make sure that the other department's jobs are easier. And it's also, by the way, doing it from a place of kindness, not just thinking, oh, if I'm nice, they're gonna get me more projects later down the future. You can always tell when something's genuine. Develop your acting niche so you have an easily marketable typecast with high quality materials that then make it easy for potential agents to want to work with you. Honor those strengths and bring them into every audition, even if it doesn't 100% fit the role, as that will be what makes it distinct to you instead of like every other person. And then once you get there, just be kind and grateful instead of assuming that you're owed something. And right now we are entering this new age of entertainment with the internet, the rise of AI, so who knows what the future holds. But at least for now, this is still a process for working in film. And look, it seems very simple. It is pretty simple, but it's far from easy, and there will always be a layer of luck involved, but you can never get lucky if you never put yourself out there. And the people that I see complain the most about luck tend to be the people that rarely get off the couch and do the work. The journey will test your commitment, your sanity, who you are as a person, because it is a rough industry. It's one of the most unpredictable and non-linear career paths you can find. I've been doing this 12 years. Most of y'all probably had no idea who the hell I am. I am by no means like at the peak of success. Most businesses you were doing for 12 years, you would at least be in some leadership position, right? But everything is unpredictable and chaotic. You can never really expect anything. And that's part of what makes it fun, right? You're always on your toes, but you have to be somebody adaptable and willing to go through that for this to be the path for you. So if you do want help working your way through each of these levels from someone who's already been on that journey and is still actively figuring things out alongside of you, well then check out the Acting Lab. Links below or with this QR code right up there. And if you want to see my full guide on how to get yourself an agent, then click this video right up there.